The rain had stopped, but the trench was still thick with mud. Private Thomas Hale sat on a crate inside the dugout, cleaning dirt from the bolt of his rifle. Nearby, Miller argued with Davies about the proper way to stack sandbags, while John Taverley leaned against the wall, stretching his once-injured leg and pretending not to listen. Just then, Corporal Finch ducked into the dugout, brushing dirt from his sleeves. Hale, Miller, both men looked up. "Yes, Corporal," Thomas said. Finch pointed his thumb down the trench. "Field kitchen's set up behind the lines. They've got soup ready for the unit. I need 2 men to fetch it." Miller groaned. "Soup duty? You'd prefer patrol?" Finch asked calmly. "No, Corporal," Miller replied quickly, grabbing his helmet. Finch handed them a large metal pot with a lid and 2 wire handles. "Fill it and bring it back without spilling half of it," he said. "Davies and Taverley will hold things here." Davies gave a lazy salute. "We'll guard the mud." John smirked. "Try not to get lost." Thomas and Miller climbed out of the dugout and started down the winding communication trench toward the rear lines. The mud sucked at their boots with every step, while the distant rumble of artillery rolled across the gray sky. After a while, the trench widened and the sounds of the fronts softened slightly. Miller shifted the pot. Handle in his hand. "Not far now," he said. "Kitchen set up near the supply wagons." Thomas nodded, but his thoughts had drifted somewhere else. He could see the hospital courtyard in his mind, the bench beneath the tree, and the blonde nurse standing there. "Lily, you're thinking about that nurse again, aren't you?" Miller said suddenly. Thomas glanced over. "What?" "You've had that same look since we left the trench," Miller said. "Like a man remembering a good meal he can't reach." Thomas smiled faintly. "I told you about her." "Yes," Miller said, "and I told you I don't believe half of it." Thomas shook his head. "Her name's Lily." Miller just chuckled. "Your angel nurse." They climbed out of the trench onto a muddy supply path where wagons had carved deep ruts into the earth. Miller gestured ahead. "Kitchen's that way." Then he paused, a thoughtful look on his face, "And the hospital's not far from there." Thomas looked at him, a silent question in his eyes. Miller sighed dramatically. "Fine, we'll take a quick look so you can prove she actually exists." They cut across a path toward the hospital grounds. The familiar stone building stood right where Thomas remembered, its windows glowing faintly with lamplight. A few orderlies moved in and out of the entrance, carrying supplies. Thomas scanned the courtyard. The bench was still there, under the same tree, but Lily wasn't. They stepped inside briefly, glancing down the ward corridors. Nurses moved about their duties, their white uniforms a stark contrast to the grim world outside, but none of them were her. After several minutes, Miller folded his arms. "Well," he said, "looks like your angel has flown away." Thomas frowned slightly. "Maybe she's on another shift," he said quietly. "Or maybe she never existed," Miller replied with a grin. Thomas didn't answer. They eventually reached the field kitchen, where a military cook ladled thick vegetable soup into their pot. Steam rose in 2. The cold air as the lid clanged shut. "Don't spill it," the cook warned. Thomas and Miller started back toward the trenches, carrying the heavy pot between them. The walk felt much longer on the return journey. Thomas's thoughts kept drifting back to the hospital. Had Lily gone home? Transferred to another hospital further down the line? Or something worse? Miller broke the silence. "You're still thinking about her." Thomas just shrugged. Miller's tone softened slightly. "If she was smart, she got posted somewhere quiet." Thomas hoped he was right. By the time they returned to the trench, darkness had settled across the battlefield. Davies helped lower the soup pot into the dugout while John handed out tin cups. "About time," Davies said. "We were about to eat John instead." "Too stringy," John added with a straight face. Soon the 5 men sat crowded inside the dugout, passing cups of hot soup around while the faint glow of a lantern flickered against the wooden walls. The warmth filled the small space, a welcome comfort. Miller launched into a ridiculous, exaggerated story about Thomas searching the hospital halls for his missing angel, making Davies nearly choke on his soup while John laughed quietly. Even Corporal Finch allowed himself a small, rare smile. Thomas laughed along with them, the camaraderie a brief shield against the cold and the war. But somewhere behind the laughter, a quiet worry lingered. As the men ate and joked in the flickering lantern light, Thomas stared briefly into his cup of soup, wondering where Lily might be, and hoping, with all his might, that she was still somewhere safe beneath the same war-torn sky. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content like this.